It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight, focusing this evening on the crisis that's unfolding in the Middle East and its impact on Jewish and Palestinian communities up and down the country. Israel has ordered a complete siege of Gaza. No one goes in or out. Electricity, water and food supplies have been completely cut off as the region braces itself for retaliation to the Hamas attacks over the weekend, which have killed at least 900 people. Palestinian officials say more than 680 people in Gaza have died as Israel's Prime Minister vows to punish the small strip of land, a quarter of the size of London, and home to more than 2 million people. In Downing Street this evening, a vigil for those killed and a promise to support Israel. We know that when conflict escalates in the Middle East, fears of anti-Semitism rise in the UK. The Home Secretary tonight urging police chiefs to step up patrols and guard against discrimination and hate on UK streets. Outside the Israeli embassy in London, a demonstration by hundreds of pro-Palestinian protesters demanding what they call a free Palestine. And right now, for thousands of families, many of them here in the UK, it is the desperate wait for news. I'm going to be joined in the studio by Noam Sagi, whose 74-year-old mother disappeared from her home near the Gaza border. Also tonight, ready to lead the country out of the Tory wreckage. Labour makes its pitch to voters at what is probably the last party conference before an election. And we'll tell you about the hoard of 300-year-old coins found in a Scottish fireplace by an archaeology student on her first ever dig. All that to come and more on the UK Tonight. Well, it's a war that is unfolding more than 2,000 miles away, but for the Jewish and Palestinian communities of the UK, this feels so close to home. Relatives taken hostage or murdered, familiar neighbourhoods attacked, and the fear of what escalation will mean for both sides, with Israel's Prime Minister saying in the last hour that their response will echo for generations. Well, we know at least 900 Israelis are believed to have died since Hamas launched that series of attacks on Saturday. Sky News understands that more than 10 British people are feared dead or missing, and countless more families here will have loved ones who have been killed, injured or taken hostage. On the other side of the conflict, there are thousands of Palestinians living in the UK whose relatives in Gaza are now literally in the firing line as Israel prepares to retaliate. More than 680 Palestinians are believed to have been killed so far. Our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, has this report.
Midday in one of Israel's biggest cities. 4 cars ignited by a Hamas rocket. Fiery inferno sending up thick black smoke. A 50-year-old Israeli woman died in the attack. Hai Havi came out onto his balcony to witness these scenes he photographed. His neighbourhood up in flames.
What did you think?
They came here. That's what I thought. Because, you know, I've been hearing the stories from everything that's happening more on the border, and it was horrifying.
Israel has been menaced all day by rockets, from Jerusalem to Ashdod to Tel Aviv.
It doesn't matter how effective Israel's anti-missile defence systems are, these rockets are still getting through in their scores. And what's terrifying for the Israelis is the random, sporadic nature of these attacks. They have no idea where or when they're going to fall next, which is why, from what we're seeing, these communities are emptying out people, if they can, fleeing to different parts of Israel.
Hamas is defending these attacks. Its spokesman telling Sky News that they are a response to Israel's hostility to Palestinians.
This is a pure Palestinian resistance responding to a continuous aggression against Palestinians in Gaza, West Bank and Jerusalem. But at the same time, we are welcoming any support to our resistance from Egypt, from Qatar, from Syria, from Iran, from UK if they want.
The Israeli military is retaliating. It's released these pictures of Gaza being pummeled by its airstrikes and artillery from the air. Ordnance raining down on one of the world's most densely populated places. And these are the scenes on the ground. Panic at the sound of incoming attacks. This is the aftermath of one airstrike, children being carried out through smouldering rubble. Mohammed was in a building next door to a mosque, flattened by the Israelis. Says the attack came without warning.
We were just sitting down at home and they struck us so quickly all at once. They didn't warn us.
Israel says it may not warn ahead of all of its strikes as it's tried to in the past. The military's language is sounding as uncompromising as its tactics.
We are imposing a complete siege on Gaza. There will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything will be closed. We are fighting against human animals and we are acting accordingly.
There's tension on Israel's northern border with Lebanon too. Israel is sending reinforcements, troops and armour in case its Lebanese enemy Hezbollah is tempted to open a second front. Israel says its assault from the air on Gaza will soon be followed up by a ground offensive. Are its enemies waiting for that moment to escalate this war? Dominic Waghorn, Sky News, Ashdod.
Well, in the past few minutes, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said a number of Palestinian gunmen remain inside Israel. He has compared the attacks to the atrocities committed by Islamic State and said Israel's strikes against the militant group up to this point are just the beginning.
And the one thing that is most important in war is staying calm. I know we all want results right here, right now, but it will take some time. But I promise you, dear citizens, at the end of the war, all our enemies will know it was a terrible mistake to attack Israel. What we will do to our enemy in the next few days will echo for generations. Already, the battlefield is filled with heroic stories of our people, from the citizens, the policemen, the soldiers. I saw video of standing with his people after killing the terrorist. This is our spirit, standing strong together.
So, hundreds, even thousands of Israeli families are now desperately searching for loved ones missing since Hamas launched their attacks on Saturday morning. That includes the family of Noam Sagi, a 74-year-old grandmother who lives just a few hundred metres from the Gaza border. Her son, Noam, lives in London. He saw Palestinian media broadcasting from outside his mother's home. And when the Israeli army entered her property on Saturday afternoon, there was no sign of her. Well, Noam joins me in the studio now. Noam, thank you so much. I appreciate what a difficult and stressful time this must be for you and your family. Talk to me about the moment you knew something was wrong.
So we heard Saturday morning that the events starting to roll, and my mum went 9:30 Israeli time. The phone went quiet, and we knew that she's in a safe room. At that stage, we believed that that would be some kind of quiet, just to keep it safe. And not much later, we start to see on social media Palestinian reporters standing in front of her on a front lawn and basically reporting from her the front of the house. And when I start to see people coming and going and what I heard, I really my heart was sinking. I really started to get very nervous. And as you said, it's not only till 4 o'clock in the afternoon that the army came in and she wasn't there.
You're at this point, I'm sure, trying to desperately get hold of her without any success. She lives in a very close-knit community. They all know one another. And you have been in contact with people there. You've had some reports from the Israeli army and officials about what happened in that area. Do you know anything about what may have happened to your mum, or has she simply disappeared? What do you think has happened? What information have you been given?
I didn't give any information. So a lot of what we're going to do here is based on common sense and footage. I know my mom is not on the dead list. I know she's not on the rescued list. And I know she's not on the injured list. She's 75 years old with a hip replacement. She's not going to hide somewhere. She was at home. She was in a safe room, normally designed for shells and rockets and not
because
for
she
someone...
so close to the border.
They live very close to the border, so Niroz is in a very close proximity to Khan Younis, which is the southern part of the Gaza Strip. And the only assumption, not just about her, but so many of her neighbors and people around, is that if they're not being found, it's because they've been taken. Mm-hmm. Footage also show us that they've been, most of them took back to the Gaza Strip on their own mobility scooters.
Yeah. What information has come out of the neighbourhood in terms of, have you had any information from neighbours about what has happened to others in that community? Because is your mother the only one from that area that you fear has been taken?
No. There is over 90 people.
From
a community of about 300 people that is now missing. There is a list of dead that is, I don't want to put numbers, but it's quite long. Mm-hmm. So very little left. They came in, and it's easy to see in footage. They drill in the locks and the windows, and they come in with the aim either to abduct or to kill. They loot and they burn everything after them. Mm. So not much left. They're all in the same boat. We're talking about people, my mom is one of the youngest. We're talking about people in their 80s, and we're talking about people in the mid-80s. Cancer patients, demented people. They had to take people out their oxygen and out of the drips.
They were targeting the most vulnerable.
It is like going into a care home and take people from out of their own, the most vulnerable environment where they get care. So my first thing is that's beyond the rule of every conflict and everything that we can agree that this is the code of humanity, even if we disagree and even if we are in war. Mm. We're talking about young kids and babies, and we're talking about old people, vulnerable people, unwell, which we are super worried for their own health right now, because we don't know what is the situation, who can give them the support that they need and the basic, medical care that they need.
No, it must be such a difficult situation in terms of there is hope, because if your mother has been taken, there is hope. Like you said, she is not on a list of the dead, and that must give you some hope. But in terms of what happens next, there has been some frightening rhetoric flying around over the last 24 hours, particularly from Hamas side, about what they will do to hostages if and when Israel retaliates and targets residential homes and buildings on the Gaza Strip. What are your thoughts about what happens next? What do you hope from the Israeli government in how they proceed? Because we've just heard from the Prime Minister in the last few minutes saying that what happens next from Israel's side will echo through the generations.
I don't want to talk to the Israeli government or the Hamas. I want to talk to the British people and the British government, and I want to talk to the EU, and I want to talk to anyone who believes that we live in a world that can agree on some level of humanity. What is the code for being here? What is the point if we are not allowing the basic code of humanity to be shared in our world? So I think that can go in so many different directions right now, but that is not the point. Mm. Why are we doing this for? If we take old people and we take kids, and a lot of people saw footage that is very upsetting, and to what level of humanity, to what level we're degrading ourselves, and to what level we agree to keep on going. This is absolutely madness, because we have to stand shoulder and shoulder to say, this is where the dial falls. This is where it is. Humanity needs to stand together and say there is some cues that won't be broken. And it's, I don't think that the Israelis or the Hamas will actually follow that. That's my true and honest response. I think this is for other forces and people that look into where we live and don't think this is a corner of the world. We're talking about real vulnerable people and young kids who caught up in the middle between, I don't know where that is going on for years. What changed next?
We're also talking about something that's happening 2,000 miles away, but the chief rabbi is saying today that there's hardly a Jewish family in the UK not affected by this. What sense are you getting in terms of talking to relatives, friends, other Jews living in the UK? Because this has hit hard. This has ramifications that have reached the UK.
I think the magnitude of the events will echo, you know, in so many different ways. I must say, I live here for 21 years. I'm a British citizen. The level of support and love and care that we get from the London community is unbelievable. It actually restored my trust in humanity. And I don't expect much from the Hamas. People who want to score political points, I don't really think that the people who is dancing in the street of the massacre that happened in Israel and happy that vulnerable people are actually dragged through the fields and now sit in a ditch somewhere in Gaza is a good thing. If there will be a bargaining chip for what? So I think I worried that people are afraid. I don't have the luxury to be afraid. I will go to every house in Gaza if I need right now, and I will talk with anyone if I need right now, because fear is a luxury you cannot afford.
On that note, what are you going to do next? I know that you wanted to come on Sky News to talk about your mum, to highlight what is going on. As I said, you know, so many families in a position that you are now, they don't know where their family members are, if they'll ever see them again. It's the not knowing, it's the worry. What are you going to do next? Are you going to try to travel out there? I know that you want to spread the message that you're talking to us about right now.
I think, you know, there is so many people affected by it. So in a weird way, I think we need to stay where we are and do our best where we are.
Yeah.
So if I can be here and I can be in the EU and I can talk to anyone that can get someone on the ground to verify where is these people and look after they get medicine. We're talking about very little time that left here. I don't think it's just a case of Israel start to retaliate and it will be bombardment and they will start to execute people. I think this is old people that some of them are Holocaust survivors. One of them was on the kinder transport. And she's now, at her age, need to... it is beyond sense. It's beyond anything that we can agree about, we can disagree. And that is my message here. I think we need to do anything in our power to stand with some code of humanity and go in and say, okay, this is the people, this is what they need, and make sure that they are well and being looked after. I also think it's ridiculous to use them as a bargaining chip for this. If you have a fight and it's a soldier's a soldier, let's meet up and let's do what we need to do.
No, and thank you so much for coming to talk to us. Please keep us up to date with what happens to your mother. Everyone watching, I'm sure, will be wishing you and your family the best, or the families that are in exactly the same situation as you are right now. Your mother, Ada, missing. We will keep our viewers updated with her story. Thank you so much. You're quite right. It's about the people, not the politics at this point in time. Noam, thank you. Well, more than 10 British or British-Israeli nationals are feared either dead or missing in the weekend's attacks. Nathaniel Young has been serving with the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, when he was killed on the Gaza border on Saturday. His family sharing a post on Facebook saying they are heartbroken. They've described him as full of life and the life of the party. His funeral was held today in Jerusalem. Bernard Cowan has also been identified by family members on social media as having been killed in the attacks. Cowan grew up around Glasgow, but settled in Israel, where he lived with his wife and 3 children. 26-year-old Jake Marlowe is missing after the attack on a music festival in Israel. He was working there as part of the security team. The country's embassy say that he is missing near Gaza and hasn't been seen since Saturday morning. And today, photographer Danny Darlington's family have confirmed his death via social media. In an Instagram post, Danny's sister said, "My baby brother Dan was murdered by terrorists on Saturday morning on Al Kibbutz near Oz, alongside his beautiful friend, Carolyn." Meanwhile, there is growing concern over a rise in anti-Semitism here in the UK. The Home Secretary says that she is writing to police chiefs, urging them to step up patrols to prevent anti-Jewish disorder. Suella Braverman has been visiting Golders Green in North London today, and in the last few minutes, the Metropolitan Police Service in Barnet has shared these pictures on social media. Well, our communities correspondent Becky Johnson is here with me in the studio. Becky, a really worrying time for those communities affected here in the UK, particularly those affected by anti-Semitism, because when there are effects in the Middle East, they do reach these shores. What can you tell us about what's going on? Obviously, Suella Braverman coming out and saying that she is backing the police to do what they can.
Indeed, I've spent the day speaking to people in the British Jewish community, and it is undoubtedly incredibly tense for them at the moment. Many are receiving very difficult, very upsetting news about family and friends in Israel, and at the same time they're concerned about their families here and the possibility of a rise in anti-Semitic attacks. And I think they'll welcome the robust language from the Home Secretary. She's issued a statement saying the barbaric attack on Israel by Hamas terrorists who've massacred civilians and kidnapped the most vulnerable, including the elderly, women and children, is truly sickening. And she's confirmed what the Prime Minister has also said, that the UK stands unequivocally with Israel in her fight against this evil. And she's talked about there being zero tolerance for anti-Semitism. She is writing to police chiefs across the country, asking them to step up their patrols. She says there's no place for demonstrations, convoys or flag waving on British streets that glorifies terrorism or harasses the Jewish community. Now, that statement will be welcome, but as you'll see in my report, there is undoubtedly tension within communities around the UK.
Fresh graffiti in the Jewish heart of North London, and a sense of old wounds now reopened. A suspected burglary at a kosher restaurant left an uneasy community concerned that this was motivated by anti-Semitism. As police stepped up their patrols, for many in this part of the city, the attack on Israel is personal, and there's fear that ordinary people will be targeted in their workplaces or at Jewish schools.
My daughter is concerned. She's got a 9 and a 5-year-old, and the 9-year-old is very concerned. I heard this morning that a lady was taking her child to school, and as she was dropping the child off to school, a car went past shouting, "Allah Akbar." Why are they frightening little kids going to school?
Michael has family in Israel. He's had bad news about 2 of his relatives.
One of them, they found his body. The other one, we don't know what happened to him. He's disappeared. We don't know, we have no idea what happened to him.
He feels helpless and concerned for his family here too.
We don't feel safe. We don't think the police take it very seriously. We don't think that we are taken seriously. We think we are just being mocked.
Religious leaders say across Europe, Jewish communities feel threatened.
A friend of mine in Barcelona contacted me saying, "Rabbi, don't go out in the streets of London, be careful." And I think there is a sense we have to be careful, we have to be vigilant.
Some now feel compelled to travel to Israel and join the call-up of army reservists.
I'm going back on Wednesday. Please God, if the flight's going to be available. I have a flight, but I don't know if it's going to happen. And yeah, everybody's there, and we're just protecting our home.
But at a large pro-Palestine demonstration outside the Israeli embassy, people wanted their voices to be heard.
That's why I came here. I raised my voice. Stop the war, stop the war. We want peace. We want to live together. We don't want to kill each other. That's enough, enough, enough.
There are accusations of rise of anti-Semitism, and if there is anti-Semitism, it must be stopped, and those people who are committing the crimes must be arrested. However, this is not about anti-Semitism. Standing up for the issue of Palestine is asking for justice, respect for international law, and an end to occupation.
In Liverpool, outside the Labour Party conference, there was an angry exchange.
Stop the murdering of innocent Israelis and Jews! Stop it! Why?
At the gates of Downing Street, people gathered in support of Israel. Pain, tension and the fear of what will happen next are being felt around the world.
Becky's report there. Becky, stay with me because I just want to update people on what's been happening outside the Israeli embassy in London. Palestinians have been protesting there this evening. We understand around 5,000 people in attendance. Parts of the building appear to have been boarded up ahead of this demonstration. The protesters there chanting Israel is a terrorist state and calling for a free Palestine. One of the groups behind this demonstration, the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, said in a statement, if violence is to end, both that of the oppressor and the oppressors, then we must all take action to end the root cause, Israeli apartheid and oppression of Palestinians. Those are words of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign in a statement. Becky, just looking at these scenes, obviously we were talking about how when things escalate in the Middle East, fears of tension and anti-Semitism arise here in the UK, the Jewish community, feeling very nervous at the weekend. We've just had, access to a letter that was sent out by the head of London's Jewish Free School, talking about precautions for pupils that include, if they don't want to wear their blazer with a badge going to school, then they don't have to. They're working with parents to make them feel safe because some Jewish families questioning whether to even send their children to school today in case they're a target. And this just shows the tensions, not just in real life, but online as well, particularly over the last 24, 48 hours.
Absolutely. What's happened in the Middle East in the last few days is unprecedented. And, as we've just seen in those pictures from the demonstration that's taking place, as we saw at the pro-Israel demonstration outside Downing Street a little earlier this evening, emotions are running very high indeed. Of course, there is the online aspect as well, something that the Home Secretary has urged police forces to crack down on if there is anti-Semitism online as well as on the streets. But as you say, and as you saw in my report, Jewish parents are concerned about sending their children to Jewish schools. The one school you mentioned saying that children perhaps don't have to wear their blazers so that they wouldn't be identified as being a pupil of that school.
They won't be kept after school because they want to make sure that everyone's home safe and on time, so there's no worry for parents if their children are coming home a bit later.
And that's hugely concerning. And I think, Jewish parents already worry about anti-Semitism. They worry about their children attending Jewish schools. We know that Jewish schools have security anyway, but certainly this morning that was stepped up in North London. And there is concern, high emotions and tension and fear of what's coming next, I think.
Yeah, very much so. OK, Becky, thank you. Becky Johnson there. Well, we're going to have a special programme for you on the Israel-Hamas war, presented by Mark Austin, live from Jerusalem. That's coming up after the UK tonight at 9 o'clock here on Sky News. Now, Labour has made its pitch to voters, the Shadow Chancellor vowing to rebuild Britain if the party wins the election. We'll have more on that for you. And the historic building in Cumbria, which collapsed into a river over the weekend.
Big stories don't always come from big cities. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent, and this is where I grew up. We can reveal that the driver who hit Harry Dunn is 42-year-old Anne Sakulas.
Just met the president and we never thought we'd get this far.
This is what they're up against, that the wind is the really big problem. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick. It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open?
Stop.
We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
I never knew they would make it. It's amazing.
Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
Welcome back. You're watching the UK Tonight. Here's what is happening around the UK today. The Houses of Parliament look set to be the latest workplace facing industrial action, with security guards voting to go on strike. This is after they were told to work extra night shifts to make up for a lack of staff. We're told this would result in restricted access to Parliament, which would mean long queues for MPs and Lords, staff and visitors trying to get in. Well, the union representing the guards says they are permanently understaffed and enough is enough. Strike dates are going to be announced later this month. Scotland's road and rail networks faced heavy disruption over the weekend thanks to flash flooding. We can show you this section of rail line north of Gleneagles as an example of just how badly some networks were or still are affected. Network Rail says it's going to be some time before they can repair this particular section. Parts of Scotland saw a month's rainfall in just 24 hours. Severe flood warnings remain in place. Meanwhile, Network Rail has paid out almost £1 million in damages over a train crash which killed 3 people back in 2020. The driver of the train, Brett McCulloch, conductor Donald Dinny and passenger Christopher Stuckbury died when the Aberdeen to Glasgow service hit a landslide that had been caused by heavy rain. Network Rail had previously pleaded guilty to a number of health and safety failures and admitted it failed to warn the driver that parts of the track were unsafe. An update for you on the Bibi Stockholm. Sky News understands that asylum seekers who were on board the barge have been told they'll be moved back onto it next week. You'll remember 39 migrants were evacuated from the barge back in August after Legionella bacteria was found in the water supply. They'd only been on board for a week before the bacteria was discovered, and the barge has been sitting empty ever since. And some incredible pictures for you from Cumbria, where part of a historic court building has collapsed into a river. It's the old courthouse in Cockermouth, which caved in on Sunday morning. The back wall, the roof and a corner of the building all falling into the River Cocker. The Grade 2 listed building is around 190 years old. A police cordon is currently in place. The bridge over the river is closed as a result. And the town's mayor says there is hope the front of the iconic building can be preserved. The Shadow Chancellor says Labour is ready to rebuild Britain. The party is making its pitch to voters at what is likely to be the last party conference before a general election. Rachel Reeves told the conference that Labour would pull the economy out of the wreckage of Tory misrule.
Conference, the choice at the next election is this: 5 more years of the Tory chaos and uncertainty, which has left working people worse off, or a changed Labour Party, offering stability, investment and economic security so that working people are better off.
To round up the first day at conference, our chief political correspondent John Craig is standing by for us in Liverpool. So we heard a sample of Rachel Reeves' speech there. What else was on offer?
Well, not just Rachel Reeves. There was a big celebration, as you might expect, for the victor of the Labour's success in the Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election. That was Michael Shanks, who made a pretty good speech, actually, in the hall. Massive celebrations, a good speech from Anna Sarwar, the Scottish leader, who said that that was only the start, there's more to come. But really, the day was dominated by a blockbuster of a speech by Rachel Reeves, ready to serve, ready to lead, ready to rebuild Britain. Lots of announcements, including a crackdown on what she called the carnival of waste by the government during the pandemic. A crackdown on government ministers using private jets and helicopters. Well, I'm not sure how successful she'll be with that. But there was also plenty for the Labour delegates to cheer. Obviously, a criticism of the government's bungling of HS2. Policies we know about already, like tackling the gender pay gap and so on. And the great surprise came at the end of her speech when there was an endorsement in a video by Mark Carney, the former Bank of England governor appointed by a Tory Chancellor, George Osborne, back in the early days of the coalition government. Well, that will infuriate the Tories, but Labour are delighted. They see Rachel Reeves as an Iron Chancellor in the Gordon Brown mould, and she got a fantastic reception here. Tomorrow afternoon, around about 2 o'clock, it's Sir Keir Starmer's big speech, which obviously they hope will do even better than Rachel Reeves, but she did very well.
John, thank you. John Craig at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. So to come on the UK tonight, we'll be live in North London, where the Jewish community is holding a vigil in memory of those killed in Israel.
Solidarity with the people of Israel. Thank you to everyone who has helped to put this evening together at short notice, and especially to CST for keeping us safe.
And welcome back to the UK tonight. In North London this evening, a prayer vigil is about to get underway, led by the chief rabbi. We can bring you pictures of that. This is the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, arriving to greet the assembled congregation there. To remember those lives lost, the Prime Minister has pledged his support for Israel, holding an emergency meeting of Cobra today as well, following developments closely. But this evening is all about remembering those who have lost their lives. Our correspondent, Shaman Freeman-Powell, is there for us. Shaman, talk me through what's happening there this evening.
Well, the service, which, as you said, is being led by the Chief Rabbi this evening, is currently underway. Just moments ago, we saw the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, arriving here. He is expected to be doing a meet and greet with some of the people that have gathered here today at the Finchley United Synagogue. It is one of the largest synagogues in the city, so it's no surprise that this service is being held here. And it's also no surprise that many in this community will feel directly linked to what's currently happening in Israel. And this service is all about reminding those of the atrocities while standing side by side with those currently in Israel. We are expecting the Chief Rabbi to be leading this service. He will be saying prayers. One of those prayers, we understand, has been written by him himself. And we are also expecting other members of the community to be speaking here today, and of course Prime Minister Rishi Sunak.
Shaman, thank you. Well, unease, fear and sadness have gripped the Jewish community right across the UK. Virtually every member of that community will know someone who's been caught up in the attacks carried out by Hamas at the weekend. Well, to discuss how the Jewish community in the UK is feeling tonight, I'm joined in the studio by Russell Langer from the Jewish Leadership Council. The Jewish community has so many facets. You know, it's hard to talk about them as one community, but in this essence, they are all feeling it as one. The Chief Rabbi saying that there won't be a Jewish family in the UK who aren't in some way affected by what's going on. Can you sum up, first of all, your own personal feelings about what you've witnessed unfold over the last 2-3 days?
No, that's absolutely the case. The Chief Rabbi is right. You know, I woke up on Saturday morning and straight away tried to find out what's happening with my family who live on the border with Gaza. And it wasn't good news. Got a text message saying, we're stuck. They've come in and burnt our house. And in there was my aunt, my mum's sister, her daughter Amy, her husband Uriel, and their 10-day-old baby in there. They were in the safe room, and when they couldn't get them out, when Hamas couldn't get them out, they set the house on fire with them inside. Oh, right. So it's absolutely... I was just down in Whitehall earlier, and to see so many people come out, both from the Jewish community and those supporting us, to come and stand with us in the middle of London and say that they stand with us, they stand with those people who have been targeted in Israel, means a lot. What happened to your family? So they were in the safe room for around 9 hours in total. Just, you know, no access to running water, no toilet, stuck watching the fact that there were Hamas terrorists inside their house on the security footage, having to hold onto the handle to make sure that they couldn't get in. When the room was filling up with smoke, having to lift the baby up to the window so that the baby could breathe, but also lower the baby when they saw someone out of the window. Thankfully, that unlike other people you've been reporting on tonight, thankfully the army reached them and they've been recovering in hospital over the last 2 days. And, you know, they're not well, but they're recovering.
That's truly shocking, but you know they're safe. But you must have heard so many stories like this. This isn't an isolated case. As you said, we've had Noam on the programme this evening, his mother, Ada, missing, presumed taken hostage.
You know, I actually spoke to him just as he left your studio, and we were discussing where our family were near the border, and he just said to me, my family were the lucky ones. They were the ones that they reached. You know, I said to the kibbutz that they live on, and he said, they're the lucky ones, but other people haven't been so lucky. And I felt really bad hearing that. But this is personal for everyone. Those people that we saw, or the bodies that we're hearing about from this music festival, that could have been anyone we knew at a music festival here in Glastonbury. These are victims of terrorism, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, as we've been saying, this might be happening 2,000 miles away, but it feels really close to home, especially for the Jewish community, and the feeling that this is going to escalate within the next 24, 48 hours is a frightening prospect. Russell, thank you so much for coming in and telling us your family story. Thank you. We'll be back after this short break.
We were planning this run for over a year, and then that was really essential and strategic for us, more than a commercial reason, because we are actually coming to London West End in a month, and we needed to actually finish our attack rehearsals, special lighting and sound. So in Mongolia, we don't have actual stage similar size theatre in Mongolia. Therefore, we went to Inner Mongolia to prepare in the similar stage theatre, but unfortunately it was banned, so we couldn't really finish our tech rehearsals.
So how did they stop the production? Did they pull the power, did they? Was that what you were saying?
Yes, the official reason was the electric cut, right? Yeah,
they said it's a power cut or something. Yeah, OK. And tell us a little bit about what the show is about. Why might the Chinese authorities feel that it's controversial?
So the play itself is set on 3,000 years ago, 3000 BC, and then it is happening around the Hunno Empire, and then also like the ancestral empires called Skip and Pezeriks as well. And it is a fictional, it is not like truly based on historical events. So basically we were invited by Inner Mongolians, and then because especially Inner Mongolia is a home country of some majority of part of the Hunno Empire, and then therefore many thousands of people actually came from different parts from Inner Mongolia to watch the show. Unfortunately, it was cut the electric power, and then also this like water drainage, like just a couple of hours before the show, which made it impossible for the audience to watch the show. And then also like without consulting with us, it was completely banned, announced as a ban. So the director actually wanted to say, using this opportunity, we would like to make one performance in London West End as free to Inner Mongolians who would like to come, who couldn't watch it. In recent years, like China was trying to control Mongolian language, especially in Inner Mongolia. So this year they banned Mongolian language to be taught in schools, and then also like writing books as well. And then I think this play itself, maybe, in my opinion, it could have a big influence to strike patriotism for those who were longing to be connected to Mongolia, because in Inner Mongolia, lots of people still consider themselves as Mongolians.
Hello, welcome back to the UK Tonight. Dave Fulton is here in the studio with me to have a look at the sport. And we're going to start, Dave, with a fascinating development. It's been described as a game changer for rugby with the introduction of a smart mouth guard.
Yes.
This is very techie. Talk to me about it.
I won't talk you too much through the tech, but I'll tell you kind of what it does. Chief Medical Officer of World Rugby was the one who said it's a game changer. And essentially what it does is it monitors the impact and it pings to an app to an independent doctor who is pitch side, and that will tell you the force of that hit. And obviously concussions in rugby, nothing new. And the context for this is that the game has been trying to do something about the hits to the head for a long time. 200-ish former players are kind of taking to court the governing bodies. The tackle height has been lowered, which has been kind of controversial. I think this will be universally more popular because quite a lot of these concussions are only picked up after the match. Rugby players are tough cookies, men and women, and they take hits and they just carry on a lot of the time. If the impact is severe enough, it means they go off the pitch, they get the head injury assessment protocols that take place, and it then enables the doctor to assess them. They might be put back on the pitch. If they are, they'll be assessed a couple of days later. So the first is going to be rolled out, it's been trialled, it's going to be rolled out on Friday. Italy against Japan, women's match, and then by January it's going to be rolled out in all elite rugby.
This is great because it not only collects data for the long term, which is what you get with so much of the tech that comes into sport. It's, you know, research on long-term effects, but this will have immediate impacts on games, the players who are on the pitch at the time. Do you reckon this is going to be rolled out to community rugby? I mean, it's early stages, isn't it? And I would imagine it's not cheap.
Well, I think it's 250 quid a mouthguard at the moment, but they have said that, yes, it should be available at grassroots because the boil and bite mouthguards that a lot of people will be familiar with, you drop your mouthguard into some boiling water, you then, when it's just about OK to do so, you bite into it and you just hold it there and it kind of goes. So you don't have to be bespoke or go to a dentist to get this done. The tech apparently will work with those mouthguards as well. So it will get rolled out then, and it's going to make rugby a safer place, which is got to be good news. Of course, that's rugby, a safer place. In the sport coming up, will Wayne Rooney be coming back to English football?
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
I'm Ross Connolly, I'm a Team Scotland wrestler and I'll be competing in 65 kilo weight class in Birmingham.
My name's Charlie Bowling, I compete in the 74 kilo weight class in freestyle wrestling for Team England.
So guys, you're going to teach us the basics of wrestling. What's the first thing you've got to do as soon as you enter the wrestling mat?
So the first thing you do, you want to be in your wrestling stance, so knees bent, nice and low.
Right leg forward, or does it matter?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
If your strongest leg's your right, I'd have your right leg forward.
Yeah.
You want your arms in front of you to protect your legs. And when you start the match, the first thing you do is shake hands with your opponent.
Good luck.
You too.
Be gentle.
Okay, so technique that we're going to show you is a double leg attack. So a double leg attack is right leg forward, big step, your knee's going to go down, grab behind the knees, right forward.
Stance forward, shake hands. And then
drive forward, push, push. Nice.
And then, cool, that was good.
So the aim of the match is to try and pin your opponent with both shoulder blades on the mat for 3 seconds.
So talk us through another move then, Russ.
Do a standing single leg attack. So single leg, pretty self-explanatory. Again, in wrestling position, I'm going to attack Charlie's single leg, his front leg. Here, head up, grab behind his leg, apply pressure with my shoulder, slide to the ankles.
So Sam, you're Charlie's nutritionist and you're all set up to test Charlie's nutrition. Explain to us what you're going to be testing for and how this setup works.
So this machine...
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Right, let's take a quick look at the weather.
Warm memories wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Southern parts looking mostly fine again tomorrow, while the north will see more rain. Before then, mostly fine this evening. At the far north may see a little rain, while some southern and western coasts will be murky. It's going to stay mainly dry overnight, mist and fog developing quite widely across the south and west, but northwestern parts will see that rain moving in. It will become largely confined to northern Scotland later, turning heavy over the Highlands. A strengthening wind will bring that rain back across the northern half of Scotland and Donegal tomorrow morning. Northern England and the south of Ireland may see a little patchy rain, but elsewhere it's going to be mainly fine once that fog burns off inland. It's going to be warm again, very warm for the southeast, but the wind will make it feel a little bit cooler.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Now, we like to bring you something weird or wonderful from around the UK at about now. So how about this? An archaeology student on her first ever dig discovered a hoard of 300-year-old coins. Well, the collection has a bit of a grim story to it, with the coins believed to have belonged to a Scottish clan leader killed in the infamous Glencoe massacre in the 17th century. University of Glasgow student Lucy Ankers made the discovery in the ruins of a house linked to Alistair MacLean MacDonald of Glencoe. He and his family were killed because of their support for King James VII of Scotland and II of England. Right, let's bring you some breaking news. This is from the Metropolitan Police on social media. They have put this out saying, we are aware of instances of suspected criminal damage in Kensington High Street. This is the location of the Israeli embassy where the protests are taking place. The Met Police go on to say officers are on the scene, intervening and gathering evidence. We are actively seeking to locate and arrest those suspected of being involved in any criminal activity. Well, let's bring you pictures of the scene. This is outside the Israeli embassy in West London in Kensington. Hundreds taking to the streets there as part of that protest. Pro-Palestinians, they're gathering on the street, but the Metropolitan Police putting on social media there seems to be incidents of criminal damage, and they are on the scene to apprehend those who are causing that. That's all we have from Metropolitan Police at the moment. Our correspondent Shaman Freeman-Powell is there for us. She'll bring you up to date throughout the evening as that protest continues. Meanwhile, in North London, the Jewish community is coming together for a vigil for those who were killed in the war that began on Saturday morning. The vigil is being led by the chief rabbi, Sir Ephraim Mervis. We can listen in to proceedings.
We have brethren in Israel, parents, siblings, children, nieces, nephews. We have friends there. Israel is the very heart of not just the Jewish people, but the Jewish faith. And we send out a strong message to Achai v'Re'ai, our brethren and our friends in Israel this evening. You are not alone. We share your pain. We are crying with you. We share your anguish. We share your fate and your destiny, and we will always stand shoulder to shoulder with you in your time of stress. It has been so encouraging and so heartwarming for us to have received so many messages of support and solidarity. And having emerged from the two-day festival of Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah last night, I've just been flooded with so many messages from so many treasured friends, faith leaders, political leaders.
That's all from the UK tonight. Mark Austin is next with a special programme.